All right, there we go. So I'm actually going to jump back to Facebook just in case anyone is here and wants to say hello. You are welcome to comment, join in. This is a conversation, and it is also, I am on my soapbox again. I really wanted to talk about this yesterday, but this weekend was the lunar eclipse in Scorpio. How are you all doing? That was intense. And also, actually, for me, somewhat delightful. I was kind of, on a personal note, I have like this all over my natal chart. And so I was kind of like expecting something really drastic to happen and like the tower crashing down. But I was actually really delighted. Other than the lack of sleep, it's been a really interesting and delightful experience. So the thing I wanted to talk about, maybe not as delightful, but who knows? I think it's really important. And I'm going to start and preface by just talking about or reading what kind of sparked this video. So I, of course, follow many different people on Instagram, and then there's people who are always suggested. And actually, I don't actually follow this person, but they were up on the people that I probably should follow. And I think I've probably commented and engaged with this person's post before. But anyway, I'm not going to talk about who they are because it's actually not important. What's important is the quote and post that this person put. And they wrote, "Spirituality that never leads to service is vanity in disguise." So I do not agree with this. And I wrote a response, which I will read to you. And actually, maybe what I will do is I will read like the person's commentary or part of the person's commentary, because this person was clearly not trying to kind of like shame anyone. And I'm sure that they meant good, but underlying that is something that I think this is where culturally, like things like, this is why I said we're going to talk about the victim triangle, the patriarchy, because a lot of these things underpin totally subconsciously, and we pull them through in our everyday lives and conversations without even realizing it. And this is what I wanted to bring up. And the time is now, because full moon, right, just illuminated right over damn Scorpio. So let's talk about the things that we don't like to see, or that we don't often see. It's not always that we don't like to see these things, but sometimes it's not obvious. For example, like when I talk about the patriarchy, we often live in kind of a world of what of my biodynamic teachers used to say. It was like macho and drag, because we in a way we kind of think that we're kind of like over this whole feminist thing, and even the feminist movement in itself is not really a reflection of the reclamation of the true feminine spirit and energy. We're still working on this stuff. That's okay. So this is not me judging and pointing fingers, but I wanted to talk about this because there are a lot of pieces here that are underpinning a lot of different systemic, sticky little things. And I wanted to talk about that. So this person did say that when I talk about service, I want to be clear about that I'm not talking about paternalism. I'm not suggesting that we impose our will on other people in any way. I am suggesting that we humbly offer aid when we can to help eliminate poverty from the world. Okay. So this sounds really altruistic, but I want to unpack this and talk about why this is actually kind of horseshit. Anyway, I did write something a little bit. I didn't actually call this person out as horseshit, so I wanted to be a little bit more eloquent than that in my response. But I did respond to the post, and I wrote, "I humbly and respectfully disagree." Maybe not that humbly. I kind of lied about that part, let's be honest. But I did respectfully disagree, because I do respect this person as a human. So I wrote, "Agreed that we are all divine, sacred, and in that agreement, that service can be skewed." service can be skewed, not the part that we are divine and sacred, just be clear. We are also whole, sovereign, and each have our unique path. However, to state that part of the path is service is to assume that the path for all spiritual seekers, healers, that's the path. Sorry, I misread my own comment. But basically, the stating that is basically saying that we're assuming that if you're here, you're here to be in service for others, and that's just assumed. And I said, while this might be true for you, your very statement is a kind of paternalism, right? Because even though this person said, I'm not trying to be paternalistic, I just want what's best for everyone. It's also kind of the underlying message is that I know what's best for everyone, and I wanted to be clear about this because I said, I'm not saying it's bad or good. It's just honest. It's true for you. So that statement is true for this person, right? However, to apply it in this way, in this generalized way, is kind of paternalism. However, to state that not being in service as vanity is just true for you, not the truth, as in capital T, capital truth, right? The underlying soul purpose and path of an individual is just that, it's individual. And while yes, working on our own stuff is probably in service in some way because we are all interconnected, to assume that the path for all spiritual seekers simply stokes the fire of the victim triangle rescuer archetype. So I want to unpack a couple things this person said. And the reason why I kind of titled this talk, welcome to my TED Talk, permission, is because here's the thing. There is an assumption here in that statement. And I think it's important because it's not just this particular person, but they're actually striking a chord that I see a lot in the spiritual world. And that is this idea that we need to do our own spiritual work and get our own shit together for the benefit of all. So whether that's the benefit of your family, your ancestry, healing your ancestral wounds, your patterns, saving the world, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm here to say that's not our fucking responsibility. I know this is contrary to what a lot of people say, because a lot of spiritual healers are like, well, if you can't do it for you, do it for others. But here's the problem with that, because the thing that's tugging on is if in the victim triangle, you are particularly attuned to the rescuer archetype, what it is doing, it is basically like ding, 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 like knocking on your resonance to perpetuate a pattern of rescuer. And I will probably put a link to a really great article by Lynn Forrest all about the whole victim triangle. So I'm not going to get into all the depths of it. However, here's the thing. Wanting to rescue people and thinking that you are going to save the world through your spiritual journey, while it sounds altruistic, is on itself the most vain thing we could do. It is in itself the vanity. This is the irony of this person's statement. They're talking about if you are not doing this, you are vain. But in fact, in believing that you must be in service to others is a type of vanity. It stokes our ego. And I can just call myself out and say that I speak from experience, because I have played the rescuer archetype like big time in my life. Okay. I have been trying to rescue people in my life, particularly a very important person in my life, for a really long time. And it took me a lot of fucking self-work to realize that actually it was a huge form, and maybe one of the biggest forms of disrespect that I could offer all that I've tried to rescue. So I just want to like that to land for a moment, because part of this whole message is not just understanding and unpacking our own healing stuff, but it's also giving yourself permission to disconnect your purpose to other people. And this is really, really, really important, because what it does is it kind of loosens these reins of ego and of victimization that we have, where really we can't actually focus on our own shit because we're so intertwined. We can't actually reclaim our sovereignty. We can't actually be sovereign beings in our own power unless we really truly recognize the power of others. And that actually means sometimes not helping. That means not rescuing. That means even when we see someone else doing quote unquote harm onto themselves, it's respecting that their process, whether it's ugly, undesirable, and makes you feel really fucking uncomfortable because you don't like suffering through their suffering, it's actually not your problem. And it's actually not your responsibility. Now, that in itself can shift, because now you're no longer, if you can really truly respect someone from the place of really truly respecting yourself and really, really sitting in your own roots, it means that maybe that person can actually be supported by your energy, but they don't have to be. They get to choose. They get to decide. And that is one of the greatest forms of respect that we can offer another human being. I actually, I really learned this actually from my cats, strangely enough as well, because cats, if you've ever hang out with cats, any animal really, you've learned this from the natural world. The natural world respects the natural world. Okay. My cat really does not fucking care about my feelings. My cats care about what their needs and desires are, what's important to them. And part of what's important to them is also being in my company. So we share this mutual interrelationship, right? We have this mutual respect and connection. However, I'm not going to turn my cats into vegetarians, right? Like, they're carnivores. They're not selective carnivores. They are dedicated carnivores, right? Their instincts are to hunt. In my trying to keep them from following their instincts is actually like a huge form of disrespect for their little bodies and beings and souls, but also for nature itself, right? This is the deeper thing that I'm talking about. In this whole servitude, helper vibe, we're actually not really respecting the intelligence of nature. Just because we don't understand something or the why of something does not mean that it needs fixing. This is so important. And as we kind of come around this end, I want to come back to the self. So one of the things that I responded to in this particular message to this particular individual was that coming back to, this might be your truth. Your truth might be this journey of getting through your own egoic process through service. Cool. Right? Maybe that's your path. Right? And I respect that, right? Because we all have a different journey. But here's the thing that I really wanted to address. There becomes this, I talked about this as well as like this whole idea, and you hear this a lot about like healing yourself for like your ancestors and healing yourself for like your family. Yeah, it's the same fucking thing. Your family and your ancestry, it's not your responsibility. In their lives, in their soul paths, it's not your responsibility to fix their mistakes, and it's not your responsibility to do your healing for them. I really want to make this clear. You get to choose. And here's the fun thing, like, you don't even have to do your own healing work. You don't have to do it. You get to decide. And there are many, many people on this earth that are going to decide to ignore it and say, yeah, fuck no, that's not going to happen this time around. Which, guess what? We get to respect that decision. And, you know, for me, when I meet someone like that, if they don't jive with me, I can also respect my own decision and say, you know what? I don't want to be in a relationship or friendship with you for that reason. Respect you as a human, but I don't have to like you or hang out with you. This is when this idea of like being a good person comes out, because here's the thing. We have it all. We don't have to like everyone, and we don't have to be liked by everyone. Respecting other people and where they are does not mean, it's not the same thing as being nice to them. It's not the same thing, right? It also allows us to be honest when we're not trying and we're not acting to be nice, to be this person that we want the world to see, that how we want ourselves to be presented. When we don't have to be that person, we can actually be honest. We can be honest with ourselves. We can be honest with who we are. And we can actually start to, if we want, if we choose, that's where we can actually start to do our greatest, deepest, funnest kind of self-work, if that's where we decide we want to go. But I also want this other piece that I really want to kind of, or idea that I want to instill in this, in if we can let go of this idea that other people and our ancestors are our responsibility, we can then actually start taking responsibility for our wants, our desires, and our path. And the other little piece that I wanted to talk about, actually, it's not a little piece at all, it's kind of a huge piece, is permission to do the thing just because. Right? So here's the thing, if you don't have that reason to like, okay, I'm going to do my own thing for my ancestors or for my kids or for this, then who for? You. You get to do it for you. And if that is not an honest reason, if that is not a good enough reason, I'm not sure what is. Because that is really, truly the most honest reason that you can have, is really to do it for you. And there's a lot of shit in our culture around selfishness and doing things for yourself and doing things, you know, especially I think particularly with women and with feminine energetic bodies, no matter what kind of gender you decide or you are or you identify with. If you are a, you know, progesterone, estrogen dominated being with a high level of feminine energy dominating your energetic natural state on a biological level, that's a mouthful. There is a particular heritage that we have in shutting down our intuition and our rightness, because it doesn't have a logic, it doesn't have a linear timeline like the masculine does, right? So I'm not demonizing the masculine. The linear timeline is helpful in some aspects, but that is the majority, that is the collective perspective of rightness that we agree upon in this culture. Is linear is right, and anything kind of outside of that is not to be trusted, right? So we're working through that, right? But the thing about this is we need to actually start giving ourselves permission to trust that space of inner rightness. It doesn't have to have a reason. I'm going to share a little story about this, about how it unfolded for me in my personal life. For those of you who know, I surf, and I like need to surf. It is for me like breathing. It is for me like eating and sleeping. It is part of my necessities of being. However, it's not on a logical, linear path. It's not exactly like a necessity, right? It's not food, it's not shelter. Doesn't really do anything. Like there really isn't a point to it, right? But what I've come to understand over the years is if I don't do it, I might as well just be dead. And that is a good enough reason to do it, to do the thing. And there are lots of things that we kind of mind fuck ourselves with in thinking that they're not important when they really fucking are. And the reason why we mind fuck ourselves is because we think that they're not, that we convince ourselves on a logical linear level that they're actually not that important. We logic ourselves out of the things, the very things that we need, that we require, because they don't make sense. And so it's really interesting because, you know, where I wanted to start, or where I started with this was this space of, you know, we find the reasons of like, okay, I'm going to do my own healing work or take this, you know, creative writing class, or this, you know, join this embodiment workshop because it's going to help me heal my ancestry stuff. Like it's important work, right? When really that's really bullshit. And so I kind of wanted to pop and deflate that bubble, because that bubble is not truth-based. It's ego-based. It is truly vanity-based. However, what I wanted to do at the same time is awaken and spark it, like the honest part. If you are drawn to something and you don't fucking know why, that's okay. That in it itself is permission to do the thing. You don't need it to be for someone else. You don't need to be for some higher good. You can just do the thing for the sake of doing the thing. It doesn't matter why. One of the things, the greatest lessons that I've taken away from surfing is it's parallel to life. We actually are just here for this experience. That's the only thing we really know that's true. And because of that, everything else that falls into the experience of the good and the bad and the toxic and the evil and the fucked up and the amazing and the incredible and the gifts and the horrors, like all of that is encompassed in this thing we call life. And it is all, in a feeling sense, really important, but in the end, it's also really meaningless and unimportant. It's both things. It's like very much like surfing, like it feels in the moment like it's so important. But in the end, it's just surfing, like it really doesn't matter, but it does, right? So this is this interesting dichotomy that's part of the lesson of experience of being here in this world, right? Is that there isn't necessarily a reason. There might be lessons and experiences along the way, but what I wanted to do is actually kind of release us a little bit from obligation. Sometimes when we unplug from this space of obligation and the heaviness that kind of comes with that, you know, servitude, really, we get to be autonomous and choose for ourselves. You know, so for example, with this guy, you know, it's like talking about, you know, service and being in service to others. One of the things that was a really big shift for me personally was, rather than being in service to others, like service to my clients or service to other people, because that kind of puts me into a space of, again, the fixer, the people pleaser of, if I'm really honest, what is the thing that I'm in service to? It's not external. It's not external. The thing that I really am here to embody and explore and really be in service with is stillness. It's truth. It's the great mystery. It's my devotion to really exploring all of the layers of what does it mean to be moved from within. And that's my own personal path. For those of you who feel that and want to come in and play in that field with me, I provide leadership and teaching and guidance in that, right? But it's about respecting and honoring. I'm not here to tell you you need me, because you don't. You need to find you. And if this container and space helps you connect to that, well, awesome. But it's actually not about that. It's not about that at all. So in and itself, we kind of are here for selfish reasons, and that's actually okay. By byproduct, you probably will affect other people and heal and touch other people in incredible positive ways. A lot of the times we don't even realize the effect that we have on others through our own healing process, right? The way that we show up creates relationships in a different way with others that can really impact. But that is not the primary purpose here. It's not the primary drive. And when we start to go from that or move from that place, we actually destroy the thing that we're trying to create in the world, that we want to see more of the world. So be selfish. Do the thing for you. Heal for you. That kind of selfishness is actually one of the most selfless things you could do. It's one of the most ego destructive things you could really do, because when we actually go into that, we actually start to face the real stuff, the real meat of the thing, right? I really don't believe in altruism and humanity for the sake of altruism, because it's not really how we're designed, and it's actually not how we're supposed to be designed. It's okay. It's okay. It doesn't mean that we are evil or toxic or we need to be repaired. Part of this whole experience is actually accepting our humanity and accepting that. Well, my dears, I think that is that. Let me know if you have any questions, comments. I will be unraveling and revealing the promotional information for the Origins, which is my group container that's coming up about if you want to explore in your own body, in your own way, through this very held field of the great mystery. If you want to just kind of sit in the ocean of unknowing and not knowing and want to see what emerges from your own sense of creation and creativity and intelligence, this is a space for that. It is a space for beginners. So if you haven't ever worked with me before, this is the place where we begin. It is the space of nervous system healing and releasing and kind of reclaiming our own range and capacity to be with all the things, including the things we don't like, the things we don't love, the things we outright are disgusted by, and also on the flip side of that, exploring our range for all of the things we want more of, creativity, creation, sensuality, sensual energy. So all of those pieces are in our bodies and rooted. This is an embodiment practice and journey that I teach. If that's something that is interest to you, it is going to be monthly classes. So I will be offering it long-term monthly. It starts soon. I don't actually have a fixed start date. So if you're interested, message me. And the more people I have who are interested, we're going to kind of collectively work on the first start date for this upcoming first class. And from then on, we will have monthly classes or bi-monthly classes. The only commitment is there is a 3-month commitment for Origins. But you can stay in as long as you want. So you can be in for 6 months or a year, as long as you like. It's monthly kind of subscription based. And some months will be 1 class, some months will be 2 classes. It will depend on what we're needing. So sometimes we'll be needing a little bit more space to digest. Sometimes we'll be needing a little bit more field and nourishment. So if you've ever worked with me, it goes in a very organic way and a really listening way. And I hope a very different way. There is a structure, but the structure actually supports the thing that is emerging rather than building a structure first. So anyway, Origins, if you're interested, let's play. Do you have anything else to say? Let me know. Again, I'm Jen Plotnikoff. I don't think I said that at the beginning. You can find me I have a personal blog, which is just my name.com, and Move From Within is the other webpage. All right, my dears. Ciao.